Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras here with ILTV's Morning Briefing. Just as relative quiet begins to set in along the south, Israeli Defense Forces have announced 4 rockets launched towards Israel's northern Golan Heights. The Iron Dome defense system reportedly intercepted all the rockets, though, and the IDF says it's unlikely that any projectiles landed within Israel's borders. In any case, the rockets were reportedly launched by an Iranian or Iranian proxy force from the area around Damascus in Syria around 5 a.m., and they're supposedly in response to a recent alleged attack. As per policy, though, Israel has neither commented on nor claimed responsibility for any recent assaults. Israel does appear to have retaliated against the early morning rockets, however, as the Syrian Monitoring Center for Human Rights claims that shortly after Israel was attacked, there was a corresponding 5 missiles launched at targets in south and southwest Damascus. Then finally, state-run Syrian media also say the blasts hit near Damascus's international airport without offering further details. And then following the flare-up, Israeli officials say that no special safety precautions would be in place in the north. In a breaking news broadcast, United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has just announced that the United States will no longer consider Israeli settlements in the disputed territories to be illegal per se under international law. And this includes East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank. But Pompeo's announcement challenges the notion held by countries around the world that Jewish settlements are de facto illegal and therefore an obstruction to peace, which is why Israeli leaders like both Prime Minister Netanyahu and Benny Gantz are applauding Washington's decision. Then the move also returns the United States' Middle East foreign policy back to the Reagan era. In 1978, the United States State Department held a legal opinion that settlements are inconsistent with international law. Then in 1981, President Reagan challenged that idea, and it wasn't until 2016 that Secretary of State John Kerry changed the policy again to its most recent form by publicly claiming the settlements to be illegal. Meanwhile, the new policy shift comes just days after the EU High Court's ruling against the Psagot winery's appeal, saying that all Jewish Israeli products from disputed territories must be labeled as such. Psagot first petitioned against the labeling in France, calling it discriminatory, a double standard, and an attempt to boycott Israeli businesses in support of the BDS movement. In other news, just 24 hours before the negotiations deadline, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel Beitenu chief Avigdor Lieberman held meetings Tuesday morning on the chances of forming a unity government. And this marks the second meeting this week between the two leaders, as Blue and White head Benny Gantz's coalition mandate hangs in the balance. But expectations that a coalition can actually be formed by Wednesday night are low all across the political aisle, especially as the Blue and White Party has been meeting with the controversial Joint Arab List in hopes of keeping a so-called minority government on standby. But Netanyahu, on the other hand, condemned the prospects of a government that includes anti-Zionist actors. And that, in part, has now led Lieberman to set yet another ultimatum. But unlike his previous threats to go with whichever party is more serious about a unity, this time Lieberman tells reporters that if an agreement is not reached by noon on Wednesday, then it's every man for himself during Gantz's final 12 hours before the deadline. But if Gantz should fail to form a coalition by midnight Wednesday night, then the Knesset will have just 21 days left to choose a new prime minister-elect or face another round of elections, the third election in less than a year, which nobody wants. Israelis didn't have to take a 20-hour flight to see South American soccer superstars at play, as last night nearly 30,000 fans came out to pack the stands for the friendly match between the Argentinian and Uruguayan national teams. The teams are internationally revered and are also known to be rivals, but it wasn't just the prestige behind the game that had Israelis, Palestinians, a mass number of Latino immigrants, and ultra-Orthodox Jews all screaming outside of the tour buses. It was the star power of Lionel Messi, who represented Argentina, and Luis Suarez of Uruguay, especially as the players usually work together for the FC Barcelona team when they aren't representing their home countries. Well, Monday night, Suarez made an impressive free kick following a foul, and the ball flew across the field, gliding into the net after touching the top of the goalie's hands. He fell to the ground and fans lost it. Then Uruguay's Edinson Cavani and Argentina's Sergio Aguero also scored goals, so in the end, the friendly match ended with a friendly tie. But still, known as having some of the top players in the world, this may have been the highest profile game to ever have been held on Israeli soil, and to think that it almost didn't happen.
All right, that's all for now. Follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and, of course, on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.